Welcome, everybody. Welcome to a courageous conversation. And we are on the topic of abortion. So that makes you courageous just by being in this room tonight, knowing some people are going to really disagree with you. So some people are also going to agree with you. But that is the point of courageous conversations. So my name is Jeff Pospisil. I am a volunteer with Braver Angels. Braver Angels, if you don't know anything about them, they came into existence in 2016 looking at the depolarization, or the polarization, I should say it that way. There was just such a divide in our country, and there is a divide where if you disagree with somebody, that means you also have to start detesting that person. And that's not what we want. So we want to be able to say, I may not like your ideas, but that doesn't mean I necessarily don't like you. So we have common things and values, we have a common humanity, and so that's what our hope for tonight is that we will have a courageous conversation that will remind us that people that disagree with us are still people, and that we should respect each other accordingly. So that we're not trying to change anybody's mind necessarily, but we do want to hear your honest beliefs on this subject. So I'm trying to think of where I want to go next. So first of all, I want to, not only everybody here in this room, I want to welcome you, and I want to welcome all the people online. And if you do enjoy this, Dakota Wesleyan is recording it, so you can share it if you want to. So that would be very much appreciated. Our moderator tonight is Alethea Underheil, and just very appreciative that she is the one that is going to be taking your ire tonight. So she's very accomplished and does a great job. And with that, I'm going to hand it off.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Alethea Underheil, and I'm a history major here and a trained chairperson under Braver Angels and also a volunteer for Braver Angels. And I'm also just very, very honored to welcome you here and serve as your chairperson on Resolved South Dakota's Constitution should secure a woman's right to an abortion in the first 2 trimesters. So the specific language of the initiated amendment establishing a right to abortion in the state constitution is this: before the end of the first trimester, the state may not regulate a pregnant woman's abortion decision. At the end of the first and until the end of the second trimester, the state may regulate the pregnant woman's abortion decision in ways that are reasonably related to the physical health of the pregnant woman. And finally, after the end of the second trimester, the state may regulate or prohibit abortion, except when abortion is necessary to preserve the life or health of the pregnant woman. So through the Braver Angels form of debate, I believe that we'll be able to discuss our differences in a respectful manner while also discovering what may be some shared values. So there are some things about Braver Angels debates that you should know before we start. So we'll go over them together. So firstly, Braver Angels debates are not necessarily competitive. There's no winner and there's no loser. We don't take like a poll or tally to see, who won. It's not about victory or defeat, but it's about what at Braver Angels we call a collective search for truth. Secondly, what we usually call the most important rule in Braver Angels debates is to say what you actually believe. Say, express all of it, not just statistics and facts, but to express when you're confused or you don't know something or have questions, and it's okay to change your mind. And next, we will be dropping the hierarchy. So whether you're older or younger or a parent, a student, a professor, a parent or child, in this room during Braver Angels debates, we're all equal. We want to hear everyone's voices. So when we do a debate, we use a parliamentary process that, in my experience, helps bring out the best in participants because it encourages them to bring out their personal views, helps people engage respectfully, and helps ensure that everyone has a chance to speak. So it always results in great civic discourse. One of the unique rules we have at Braver Angels is this thing that's like banging. So I introduced this rule really early because I think it's fun. So instead of clapping, which can sometimes drown out the voice of the speaker that's talking, we tap like a hard surface, like the bottom of our chair. So if you could show how it's done. Yep. So just, tap the bottom of the chair. So it creates this sound that's loud and can be heard, but it's not sharp, and like it won't drown out their voices. And so you can do this throughout the debate and throughout their speech. If they say something that you support, just bang the bottom of your chair and say, yeah, I agree with that. And so it's just a way to kind of keep, a supportive aura in the room. So we obviously do this at the end of every speech, just to kind of show support. So let's say I'm doing a speech right now, and I just said something so profound that you all agree with me. What do? Okay, that's right. So when you do a speech or ask a question, you have to always address me. So this is a very important rule. Instead of saying like names, we want to just address me, the chair, or as I prefer to be called, Madam Chair. So for example, when you are asking the speaker a question, you would say, Madam Chair, what does the speaker think of X, Y, Z? We do this because we don't want to, kind of throw our feelings towards the speaker, and I'm kind of the middleman who takes that, those emotions. And so again, you just use third-person pronouns and always address the chair. So I'm Alethea for now, but once this debate starts, what do you call me? Yes, thank you. So, all right, next. So when you actually do a speech, you have to stand here in the middle of the room, and you can either address, the speech to me or address the audience, whatever makes you feel more comfortable, but after you do your speech, it's very important that you stay standing so that we can ask some questions. So when you ask a question, stand up so the speaker sees you and ask your question. And when you do a speech or ask a question, you're allowed to be as nuanced, nervous, as awkward, as confused, as eloquent, or as prepared or unprepared as you want to be. We've had plenty of speeches that were just impromptu. I feel like I need to say something. You're absolutely welcome to do that. And if you're nervous, don't worry. As the chair in a room full of people, I'm probably much more nervous than all of you. So when we ask questions, let's just keep them respectful and inquire to understand what was said, not necessarily prove it false with gotcha questions, and because it can halt and slow down conversation. So when you want to do a speech or ask a question, just raise your hand and the chair will call on you. And so I'm going to give the opening speakers, we have 4 opening speakers, I'm going to give them about 5-ish minutes, and the speeches after that will open up to the audience and we'll give them about 3 minutes. I won't be super strict on time. If you're funny, if you're interesting, I'll let you go a little longer. But I would just, please ask you to be respectful of everyone's time. I'll signal when you have about like 30 seconds, but again, I'll just like tap the gavel or something just to remind you have 30 seconds left to wrap it up, but I'm not going to be like super strict. And again, also just to bring this up as early as I can, when you ask a question, it's really good to keep them as clear and concise as possible because it makes it easier for the speaker to answer your question. So if you have, something really long question to say, you can actually just form that into a speech, and you're absolutely free to make that a speech. Short but sweet questions are the best. So we will allow for about 2 questions per speech. But if there are, in the case, a lot of questions, I may ask the speaker if they're comfortable with answering more, if that keeps the debate alive. So are there any questions? Okay, so if any of you do have any questions during the debate, you can definitely ask Jeff here, and he'll answer your question. So are there any final questions? All right. I call this debate into order. Resolved, South Dakota's Constitution should secure a woman's right to an abortion in the first 2 trimesters. Please begin referring only to me as Madam Chair. I am looking for alternating speeches in the affirmative and the negative, beginning with the affirmative. The speaker will get about 5 minutes. So.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dakota Wesleyan University for the opportunity to be here tonight and for all of you for attending. I don't think we have enough courageous conversations in our country any longer, let alone in our state. I do, in the spirit of unity, want to point out that a very good friend of mine is here from the opposing side, who is Dr. Giebink, Patty Giebink, who delivered my eldest daughter back in the day. I know Patty real well, and I know she is very passionate about this issue as well. You know, you've got plenty of handout material. I just want to point out two things. One, we've got what Roe v. Wade is and what our amendment is in comparison to Roe. And we also have tried to debunk a lot of the attacks that have been coming from the opposition about what our amendment does. But I do want to start up by talking about rape. And I know it's a very sensitive topic, but the fact of the matter is, since Roe is overturned, 64,000 rapes have occurred in states with abortion bans like South Dakota. 64,000. It's just a numbing figure to try to comprehend. And our current ban has basically stripped away a woman's right to be able to make a choice whether or not to carry that rapist's fertilized embryo to term. There's no longer a choice. She must carry that pregnancy to term. 76% of South Dakotans, according to the Cheeseman Center for Democracy that did a poll, oppose that. They think there should be exceptions for rape and for incest, but they don't exist. And our legislature refuses to address it. Believe it or not, Valentine's Day, just a few months ago, there was a bill that would have created exemptions for rape and incest. They couldn't get it out of committee, let alone on the floor of either chamber for a vote. So that's where we're at, okay, in South Dakota. We have the strictest abortion ban in the entire country. No exceptions for rape, incest, or non-viable pregnancies. Women are now forced in South Dakota to carry these pregnancies to term. You know, in many ways, if you followed the news the last couple of weeks, South Dakota is Arizona. It really is. When it comes to reproductive freedom, we've turned the clock back 160 years. Civil War era restrictions, when women couldn't vote and slavery was legal. That's where we're at in our state of South Dakota. And the only way to turn that around ain't going to happen in the legislature. It's going to happen at the ballot box this coming November when we submit our amendment to restore Roe v. Wade. Now, you'll hear a lot of back and forth, and you've got all this material in front of you, and I don't have a lot of time up here to get into all this, but I want to make a couple of points. Roe v. Wade is our ballot measure. It's no more, no less, no matter what they tell you. That's what it is. And if you see that comparison chart, just read it. It's got Roe, it's got our amendment. Okay, that's the language. You can't go beyond that. That's what it is. 2, every challenge or charge or allegation or falsehood, or if call them whatever you want, you can call them lies, that are being levied, being thrown at this initiative are absolutely false. Our amendment would codify Roe v. Wade. Under Roe v. Wade, prior to Dobbs, prior to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, parental consent was allowed under Roe v. Wade. It will be allowed again if this passes. Yet, if you look at the material in front of you, that's not what they're telling you. And they have no basis for that. It was allowed under Roe. It will be allowed under our Restore Roe amendment. Conscience protections. You hear this argument about doctors are going to have to perform abortions or prescribe, medication abortions. No, that's not true either. The church amendments, and you'll see this, I think they're after Frank Church back in the 70s, protect doctors and medical institutions and nurses from having to do anything they don't want to do. There was a debate just a few months ago in front of the Supreme Court about the medication drug, mifepristone, right? Even the conservative judges in the Supreme Court said, no, the law has been settled on that since the 70s. Doctors don't have to perform abortions if they don't want to. So where they say this, it just isn't true. The whole idea of safety and health issues and all that getting thrown out the window if this passes, okay? They weren't thrown out the window under Roe. There were regulations. Doctors had to be able to perform the abortions, not private citizens. And there's a court case we refer to called Connecticut Manello back in 1975. You know, some guy performed an abortion, was taken to court, was found guilty. That is the law of the land. Then it would be the law of the land again. And then I think one of the biggest, most concerning allegations that gets made is this abortion up to birth. I mean, give me a break, okay? Seriously. Okay, now let me tell you this. The fact of the matter is, with the law we have now, which protects the rapist's embryo, as a matter of fact, at times you want to call it almost like the rapist protection law, right? You know, abortion is allowed under Roe in the third trimester if the life or health of the mother is in jeopardy. We have a life exception here in South Dakota with the law that currently exists. That's abortion up to birth. Every state in the country has at least that exception, right? So technically, how can you call us doing something that already is sanctioned by the law? Except in South Dakota right now, we don't even have an explanation for the medical professionals and what would constitute a legal medical intervention. We're waiting to get this videotape that was appropriated $100,000, and I guess the Department of Health and the governor and the Attorney General are all going to get together and figure out what they can tell the medical community constitutes a legal intervention. That's where we're at, folks. We're not doing anything beyond Roe. You know, South Dakota, I mean, it's just almost like we have this Arizona, South Dakota abortion ban. That's where we're at. That's how far we've gone backwards. It's just, you know, difficult issue. I have 5 children. I have 2 daughters. I have nieces. You know, no one really even likes to discuss this, but this just isn't fair to the women of our state. They need options, and doctors and women are the best people to make these decisions, not folks in Pierre. And that's where we're at. So we're taking it to the people. We're going to let the people decide, right? 65% of South Dakotans want it decided by a ballot measure, not by the politicians in Pierre. That's where we're at. So it's let the people decide. It's under God the people rule. And I really appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to questions. I don't want to run out of, you know, I've probably already gone over my time, but I'm more than willing to visit with you afterwards if you have questions you don't get a chance to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the speakers. So the chair is looking for questions. The chair is looking for questions. Are there any questions? No, you can keep that. Don't worry about it. Any questions for the speaker?
There's a lot of questions. I saw back here. I don't know who it was. I actually saw your hand first. So.
Appreciate you taking this opportunity and this platform to talk about it. Sometimes as Christians, we feel like we're divided on this women's health care issue. So I'm your Government Relations Committee Chair for nursing and a SANE nurse, sexual assault nursing examiner. How do we move the needle so that we as medical professionals decide that rhetoric and have a seat at the table other than legislators who aren't going to be in the room when that decision needs to be made? Where are the metrics that we have so we're all speaking the same language as to what we want as medical professionals to help and support women?
Well, you know, it's obvious we can't move the needle relying on our legislature. It ain't going to happen. And our forefathers, our founding fathers of our state, put this wonderful direct democracy initiative into our Constitution, so that when Peer isn't being responsive, because it's beholden to special interests, we have an opportunity as voters, to collect signatures, which we have been doing for over a year and a half right now. And you see a lot of our folks here that have been out on the streets. They're being called everything from baby killers. There's a whole this decline to sign movement. And now we've got this with Take My Name Off, which was a bill that just zipped through the legislature so that people can actually now say, I didn't intend to sign this, I want to take my name off, because they don't want it to come to a vote. But that ain't going to happen. I'm here to tell you tonight, this thing is going to be on the ballot in November, and people are going to get to decide what kind of reproductive freedom they want.
One more question?
Yep, the chair is looking for one more question for the speaker.
Hi, I am Mike Lindsay. Madam Chair, the statement was brought up that this would just not be fair to the women. My question would be, is it fair to an unborn child who doesn't get that choice?
That's why it's such a hard conversation. People have their own religious views of what constitutes, in their mind, an unborn child. Is it fair to the woman that gets raped to have to carry a baby to term? Is it fair to a young child, 10-year-old, that's impregnated by a stepfather or an uncle to have to carry that pregnancy to term? Is it fair to the woman who has a non-viable pregnancy, a fetus, an embryo that's going to go through this process and won't live beyond being born, that suffers to be able to draw enough air to live and has to suffer for a few seconds? I mean, none of that makes any sense. So we're going back, like I said, this is the Arizona, South Dakota abortion ban. We can do better than that in this state. And if you I understand the compassion, the heart, but you can't give a rapist's embryo more rights than a woman who's been raped. It doesn't make any sense. That woman should have a choice, and some women will choose. 64,000 raped pregnancies since Roe has been overturned in all the states with abortion bans like ours. Do you think that that's fair? I just read a report the other day. The rape incidences in South Dakota are higher than the national average. We got a problem here, all right? I have an 11-year-old daughter, or granddaughter, excuse me. I want her to have, and her parents to have some options, okay? That's my answer. I know you're shaking your head, sir, but you have your own religious views on this, and everybody else has their own views. That's why this is a courageous conversation.
All right, thank you.
Is that it?
Yep, so.
Thank you very much.
All right, so the chair is now looking for a speech in the negative, and we have a friend here from Zoom to open us up for the negative side. The speaker will get about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, greetings everybody. Thanks for letting me join you remotely tonight. My name is John Hansen. I live in Del Rapids with my wife Sheila, and we have 6 kids. Our oldest is 12 and our youngest is just over 7 months now. And I co-chair an organization called Life Defense Fund. Life Defense Fund has a mission of really educating people in the state about how extreme that this abortion amendment, this proposed abortion amendment really is. The proponents started off and really continued on a theme of rape exceptions and incest exceptions throughout that entire presentation. And I think you all have been handed a flyer that looks like this. This is the text of the actual abortion amendment. And if you read through it, one thing that you'll notice right away is that the words rape and incest aren't anywhere in this proposed amendment. If the proponents of this abortion amendment wanted to just legalize rape and incest exceptions, they could have done that, but they didn't do that. Instead, what they wrote is an amendment that legalizes abortion past the point of viability, past the point where the baby could just be born outside the womb and up until the point of birth. The proponent even mentioned a bill that was brought before the legislature this last legislative session, and he talked about how that was for rape and incest. No, it wasn't just for rape and incest. Just like this amendment, that bill would have legalized all abortion, not just early abortion, but abortion after the baby is viable outside the womb, could just be born, all the way up to the point of birth. Furthermore, the proponents like to talk about this being Roe versus Wade, this trimester framework, but another thing that the proponents didn't mention to you, wasn't honest with you about, is the fact that this trimester framework was actually thrown out, not recently by the Supreme Court, but decades ago, as unworkable and not constitutional. It wasn't in the Constitution. So that's just the starting point, the reality of what this is. So over the past year and a half, Life Defense Fund has had volunteers. Our mission has been to educate the people about this abortion amendment. And what we have found over the years, or over the last months, I should say, about a year plus, is that the circulators and the sponsors of this measure are misleading the public. They're not telling the people the truth about the abortion amendment. And you just heard that firsthand tonight. This abortion amendment does legalize abortion after the baby is viable outside the womb and up to the point of birth. You can read it in the text. It says it right here in the second paragraph. After the end of the first trimester and until the end of the second trimester, the state may regulate a pregnant woman's abortion decision and its effectuation only in ways that are reasonably related to the physical health of the pregnant woman. So no regulations related to the baby, the life of the baby, are allowable even through the second trimester. That is after the baby is viable outside the womb. The amendment goes on to say that after the end of the second trimester, the state may regulate or prohibit abortion, except when abortion is necessary in the medical judgment of the woman's physician to preserve the life or health of the pregnant woman. Now, the sponsors of this amendment knew exactly what they were writing when they wrote this amendment. Health has already been interpreted. That health exception that's in that third trimester has already been interpreted by the United States Supreme Court, and it's on this flyer here, to include all factors. You can see it on the left-hand margin there. The health exception includes all factors: physical, emotional, psychological, familial, woman's age, etc. And who really gets to decide? Well, it also says in the language there, it's actually not even it's not even the woman who decides in the third trimester. It's in the medical judgment of the woman's physician. Well, who's the woman's physician? Well, that's going to be a Planned Parenthood abortionist. And so what we have in this amendment is not just rape and incest exceptions, which some of you might have a position on that, is somewhere in the middle of this conversation. I understand that. That's not just what this does, though. It's not just rape and incest. It's not just early term abortion. It's abortion all the way to the point of birth. Here's another really important point that maybe you might have noticed when we were reading through that second paragraph, the physical health paragraph. It says that you can only enact regulations related to the physical health of the pregnant mother in the second trimester. In the first trimester, this abortion amendment would not even allow basic health and safety standards for mothers. Measures for the physical health of the pregnant mother aren't allowed in the first trimester when most abortions occur. They're only allowed in the second trimester. So when the statement is made that this eliminates basic health and safety standards for mothers, it's true. And I can understand why you would think, that seems crazy. Why would anybody do that? I agree, it is crazy. The reason why the abortion industry does it is because they know that the legislature or other reasonable bipartisan policymakers will say, we shouldn't just have unregulated, dangerous access to abortion, because we do want to look out for the dignity and the protection and the safety of mothers across this state. That's not allowed for in this abortion amendment for most abortions. So we've got abortion through all 9 months. We've got unregulated abortions, on no physical safety protections for mothers The abortion industry, it's like the wild, wild west for the abortionists under this abortion amendment. It also does take away parents' rights to know when their minor child is undergoing an abortion procedure. It is too extreme for this state, and we ought to reject it. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, so the chair is now looking for questions for the speaker. Are there any questions for the speaker?
My name is Michaela Nelson. My only question is that if abortions are no longer acceptable and illegal, what are you going to do with all those kids that get carried to term? Who's going to take care of them? If their mother is a drug-addicted person, if they are in an abusive situation, that's another whole question that is opened up when you say that every life should continue.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela, for the question. I appreciate that. So I think South Dakota has shown itself to be a very life-affirming state, and a state that that loves families and loves to help families in need. And I know personally many families who have chosen adoption in those cases when the parents aren't able to parent. I myself, I'm a lawyer by trade, and I've done a lot of adoption cases for families across the state of South Dakota, and it's probably the most rewarding, one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had in my lifetime. And so there is brokenness, there is addiction, and we have to recognize that as a state. But I think when those situations present themselves in the state of South Dakota, families across the state, parents of all ages step up, and we walk alongside these families, these mothers, these fathers, and these babies, and we help them when they're in need. I don't think, in terms of some sort of like a wait list for adoptions, I really don't think that's a case in South Dakota. I think if there's a family in a situation where adoption is appropriate for that family, I think you see many, many families, many young couples in particular, ready to step up and help protect not only just the dignity of the family, but just be there for that family and take that child in as their own through the adoption process. Thanks for the question.
All right, so any other questions for the speaker?
Yes, my name is Crystal Jones. I'm also a petition circulator here. And my question would be for you, if you ever had a conversation... My question for the Madam Chairman would be, have you had a conversation with a woman that's actually had an abortion and had a conversation of how that saved her life?
Thanks for the question. I've had conversation with many women who have had an abortion, and in fact, the co-chair of Life Defense Fund, the organization that we discussed earlier that I'm co-chairing, her name's Leslie Unruh, and Leslie Unruh runs a pregnancy help center called the Alpha Center in Sioux Falls. And part of their mission is post-abortion recovery. And so every day we're having those conversations with women. And I can tell you that in many instances, very sadly, and unfortunately, this part of the abortion conversation is sort of lost, especially the pro-abortion side doesn't like to talk about this, but there is deep regret and sadness, lifelong regret and sadness associated with going through an abortion and then living later on to deeply regret it. And so Leslie and folks at the Alpha Center, others, we're having those conversations day in and day out with mothers and really helping them through that process. So absolutely, we have those conversations quite frequently.
All right. If the speaker is comfortable, is he okay with taking one more question?
Sure.
All right, so we'll go, the chair is looking for another questioner.
Hey, I'm Emily Carlson. I am wondering, you mentioned that you care about like the safety and keeping like mothers safe, but how do you plan to keep mothers safe when there's absolutely no access to abortion in South Dakota, and when people are looking because they're desperate for an abortion, looking at other states and there's no options because everything's waitlisted, and then they are looking on the internet for pills to take? How are you going to, that's so unsafe, that people are going to go to desperate measures to take pills, and that's not safe at all. So how do you care about the safety of mothers and women if you're going to be okay with people accessing pills over the internet out of desperation?
Just a quick reminder
Thank you very much for
to
that
just
question. I
address all
appreciate
the tensions and questions towards me. Just say, Madam Chair, what does the speaker think? Nope, that's perfectly okay. Yeah, the speaker may answer the question how he likes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really, there's a couple things that come to mind. First of all, in terms of looking out for mother safety in high-risk pregnancy situations, I think Dr. Giebink might be able to speak to that as an OBGYN and who has practiced medicine for many, many years. I share the concern about sort of unregulated access to abortion pill medication. The problem is, with this abortion amendment, like we talked about earlier, it will be unregulated because the state can't enact regulations to protect mothers from dangerous, unregulated pill form abortions. I'll relate to you just a really quick story of a mother in South Dakota who went online to try to find pill abortions. She found a link. She clicked the link. She filled out some basic information. The pills were sent from overseas. And when they arrived in her mailbox, she looked at the pills. She looked at the directions for what to take. And she knew something just seemed very off about it. Something just didn't seem right about what they were telling her to do, so she brought it in for help. The reality is, for that mother, if she would have taken those pills as prescribed, the doctor that I spoke with said that she would have most likely bled out and died. And that doesn't go away with this abortion amendment. Actually, this amendment perpetuates that, because we can't have any reasonable bipartisan regulations on health and safety for mothers related to abortions whatsoever in the first trimester, when all those pill form abortions would occur. And so I share your concern. I want to look out for the physical safety and protection of mothers. This constitutional amendment literally takes us in the wrong direction, if that's your concern.
All right, so we're going to move on to the affirmative, the next affirmative speech, and I believe that we have a young student to open up for the second affirmative opening speaker.
Thank you, Matt. Good. I don't know if it's on.
Yeah.
Is it on? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, for dragging me into this. I appreciate it. So I wanted to go about this kind of slightly unconventional way. And I wanted to look more at systemic issues surrounding abortion and things like that, because I notice that a lot of the times that people who don't support abortion also don't support preventative measures for abortion. So when we're talking about things like comprehensive sex education, birth through 12, and what I mean by that is not we're telling 3-year-olds what sex is. We're talking about consent, what consent looks like, whether or not if somebody touches you and it makes you uncomfortable, that you acknowledge that that's inappropriate and that you need to tell a parent. That we're talking about, like, hey, here's your body parts that you show people, here are the body parts you don't show people, like don't be pulling your pants off at the park, that kind of thing. I babysit a lot, I've seen it. So just acknowledging that those things, that we need to be talking about them, because it helps lessen that shame surrounding our bodies, surrounding who we are, and it'll help us in the future, again, help kind of regulate sex and stuff like that. We also need to be talking about with kids like what sex is, what happens if you have sex, things like that, different ways how you get pregnant, stuff like that. I didn't get taught that. Like, thank God that I learned it my own self, because something bad could have happened and I would have been stuck in a situation where I didn't know what was happening, and then I had to try and dig my way out of it. So I think we just need to be honest with kids about what's going on. I also think it's really freaking expensive to have a kid. I know we have a baby over there. It's expensive, all right? Like, I looked up for a family of 4 with 2 children, it's $230,000 per kid to raise your kid, birth through 18. That's a lot of money, especially if you don't have any money. Same with birthing a child. It can be, I think some of the low numbers were like $18,000 just to go prenatal, birth, postnatal. Like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money compared to $500 for abortion pills, or if you needed to go through a surgery, it'd be like $2,000. Like, that's a big difference. And I don't think we should be sitting here shaming people who are poor and who make mistakes and who didn't know anything, didn't know better. Maybe they have 3 kids and they don't want a 4th kid. Like, stuff happens. It's such is life, you know? And I don't think we should be forcing people to basically carry something they don't want, pay for the birth of this sentient creature that we then unleash onto an adoption system that is overworked, underpaid, that I know there are so many great adoptive parents out there, but they can't take them all. You're going to run out of parents. It's a long process to get verified to adopt children. Like, I've looked into it. It takes a long time. It's really hard, and I think it's kind of holding on to a wing and a prayer, hoping that this entity that will eventually at some point realize that they were not wanted and then have to come to terms with that, putting them out into the world when we could not have 2 people that are upset by ending the life of a clump of cells that hasn't yet gained sentience. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah. All right, so we're now going to open up for questions for the speaker. We do kind of give preference for those who haven't asked any questions yet, but are there any questions for our speaker?
Madam Chair, I would like to ask the speaker about this sentient creature. I was just wondering what the science class is here at DWU.
That's the English major coming out.
Excuse me, I'm still asking my question, thank you. I have been told for the last 4 years since 2020 to trust the science.
Okay, so this is the alternative to the speech that I didn't give. But from my understanding, at least, that what I think is that sentience kind of comes from your nerve endings connecting to your brain and stuff like that. So you need to have nerves, obviously, that'll help you feel pain, help you think thoughts, things like that. And those don't form till we're hitting about 12 weeks, from my understanding. So you're not going to really be able to form thoughts prior to 12 weeks in the womb. So therefore, I would presume that if you could not form thoughts, you would not be considered sentient. I do think after, when we hit like 12, 13 weeks, it gets messier, but I do think for the majority under this law, we are covering most of that. The nerve cells have not connected to the brain is not capable of thought, therefore we do not have something that is thinking thoughts, that will be able to feel pain, that will be able to suffer in any way of going through an abortion.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder, let's ask questions to inquire. No personal jabs and ad hominems. Let's keep it civil here. Thank you. One final question for the speaker.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the speaker, I'd like you to ask the speaker, if she is an ableist, that if a person is able to do things and they're worthy of not being killed, or if it matters, their ability to understand, if that unborn person is worthy or not worthy, if they're able to understand. Can a person, is she an ableist?
You may answer that how you like.
No, absolutely not, because understanding requires the ability to think thoughts. And if you cannot think thoughts, therefore you cannot understand. And I think also we run into a lot of issues with the disabled community being allowed to access health care and being allowed to pay for things and stuff like that. And I think denying somebody an abortion when they need it, that's just not a right thing to do, especially if they do have a disability that would prevent them from being able to carry a pregnancy to term and things like that. Sorry.
The chair would like to applaud the speaker's bravery to come here and stand as a young student. So we have one negative speech, one negative opening speaker. Did we have anyone lined up for that? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, sure, that works. Thank you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to be here and to speak. I am Dr. Patty Giebink. I'm an OBGYN. I've been delivering babies for over 30 years. During that time, I also worked at Planned Parenthood for a few years doing abortions. And I wanted to tell you, each one of you, you are unique. You are irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. That you have value and purpose, and I celebrate you. Whether you agree with me or not, I respect you. I'm going to read from an article that I wrote for the South Dakota Medical Journal last year. I wrote a book. It's called Unexpected Choice, An Abortion Doctor's Journey to Pro-Life. It details my time working on both sides of the divisive issue of elective abortion. Because of my experiences not only as an abortion doctor but also as an obstetrician committed to both my patients, mother and child, I can offer a unique perspective on the effect that the recent Supreme Court decision in Dobbs v. Jackson will have on physicians and our patients. Since the day I started practicing medicine, I have seen the topic of abortion go from near taboo to the cause of a public and unapologetic shouting match. But the medical community's abortion discourse should not be about which abstract ideology is right, but rather about how we can show compassion, empathy, respect, and understanding, and how we can find truth and balance in this post-Roe world. When I first started working at the Sioux Falls Planned Parenthood Clinic, I felt it was important that women have access to legal abortions. I remembered the horrific numbers circulating in the media about women hurt or dead from illegal abortions every year prior to Roe v. Wade. Preventing those deaths by offering women safe abortions seemed like a noble cause. Today I know that those morbidity and mortality numbers were grossly inflated. In reality, CDC report shows that the number of deaths in the year prior to Roe was actually around 24. Of course, 24 deaths is far too many. But the promulgation of this false information by major media outlets exemplifies the way in which proponents of certain ideologies garnered sympathy for their ideas in the nation's media discourse. Through these manufactured numbers and other false narratives, medical professionals like me, whose careers centered around a passion for women's health care, are made to feel that providing abortions is essential to serving their patients. Having served patients facing a wide swath of pregnancy complications in South Dakota, I have treated patients in underserved countries such as Pakistan. I empathize with obstetricians facing challenging circumstances, and I empathize with the common concerns that South Dakota's abortion laws may restrict doctors' ability to treat potentially life-threatening pregnancy complications, such as miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, chorioamnionitis. Some of the confusion is over the definition of abortion, since abortion has about 10 different medical definitions. However, our state's legal definition is fairly straightforward, and it hinges on intent. Abortion is the intentional ending of a human life in utero. In fact, it says that the ending of a unique human being. In contrast, miscarriage involves removing tissue from a pregnancy that already has been confirmed by 2 reference points or medical tests to be non-viable. There should be no confusion about whether this is the same as an elective abortion. At no point does the physician end the life of a fetus or an embryo. Ending a pregnancy to save the mother's life should not be confused with elective abortion, nor does our state law recognize it as such. Situations such as molar pregnancies, chorioamnionitis can be life-threatening, requiring treatments that result in pregnancy loss. However, the loss of life is not the goal of these treatments. The physician's only aim is to save the life of the mother. In such cases, a choice is being made. In South Dakota, physicians can still end pregnancies under most circumstances. The only thing is no longer legally permissible is ending a pregnancy with the intent of ending the fetus's life, unless it's necessary to save the life of the mother. And I think when I was testifying in February in Pierre, it was interesting because I said, there's no confusion here on our law. There is no confusion. I don't understand why doctors are confused, because the intent of an elective abortion is to end the life of that unborn fetus. The intent of an obstetrician is to have a healthy mother and a healthy baby. That is our intent. If mom develops a condition that puts her life at risk, then we decide to deliver that baby. Our goal is still a healthy mother and a healthy baby. That is our goal. And that should never be confused with elective abortion. And a doctor should never be afraid of being accused of a felony in that circumstance. The narrative that pro-life laws will harm patients by forcing doctors to let them bleed out or die of sepsis while they wait for approval from the hospital lawyers is entirely false. It is entirely possible to offer the highest quality medical care without abortion. In fact, withholding life-saving care from patients amounts to malpractice. A similar concern about abortion restrictions is that parents will be harmed by not being able to terminate pregnancies after receiving a fetal diagnosis. A few years ago, I spoke with a Sioux Falls perinatologist who is not unsympathetic to pro-life issues, but felt that doctors needed to offer parents carrying a baby with a life-limiting diagnosis to be able to offer them more than to be able to offer them options. In addition to carrying a baby to term or near term, they wanted to offer timely termination to shorten the period of grief. Historically, we have assumed that the answer to this diagnosis is termination. under the assumption that it's the only way to prevent a fetus's suffering, or that a mother shouldn't carry a pregnancy that, because of the child's short lifespan, we deem unviable. But is that in these parents or their children's best interest? We could be wrong about the child's prospects. We've all treated patients whose health flourished beyond our expectations, either due to misdiagnosis or just luck. A recent study reported by the New York Times uncovered that many parents are inadequately informed about the staggering high rate of false positives in prenatal genetic screening tests, which may have led them to abort healthy children. And with the scientific developments we have seen in the past several decades that make ever more obvious the humanity and value of human beings in the womb, it may be time to reconsider the way we respond to the news of a life-limiting diagnosis. The most up-to-date research demonstrates that fetuses may be able to feel pain as early as 12 weeks. And technology advances, they're able to survive outside the womb, moves earlier and earlier. Our medical practices should reflect today's science. Our society can only be uplifted when we decide to treat the most vulnerable among us with the dignity and respect they deserve. Recognizing that deliberately and unnecessarily ending their lives violates this dignity is only one necessary step we need to take.
I don't want to cut you off, but just kind of wrap up.
Sure.
Yep, thank you.
Our state's new abortion ban brings home the fact that elective abortion is not health care. It treats no medical conditions because pregnancy is not a disease. Poverty, abusive relationships, mental illness, a lack of social and emotional support are all reasons that pregnant women may feel unprepared to have children. But abortion does nothing to solve these underlying problems. Instead, it only allows our society to avoid dealing with them. Once we stop relying on ending lives in utero as a way out of addressing these women's burdens, we can find real solutions for them. For policymakers, this may mean finding solutions to make housing, health care, and child care more affordable. For nonprofits, it may mean creating more resources for women in crisis and offering help to empower them to feel confident as parents. It is an unreasonable fear to believe that one's ability to practice medicine is unnecessarily limited by not being able to provide elective abortion on demand. Instead, consider the hidden costs of abortion, the risks and potential complications often not considered, many permanent effects physically and psychologically. A woman's circumstances may change as the pregnancy progresses. A significant number of people wish they had known all the risks, immediate and delayed. Before making such an important decision, we need to return to the practice of valuing and protecting both our patients. It's what they deserve. So,
we'll need to move on to questions for the speaker. Are there any questions for the speaker? Yes. We'll go to you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Lori Langland, and what has been playing out in red states since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade is that pregnant women are miscarrying, but they're not being cleaned out, and there are pregnant women who very much want their babies, who are losing their babies are dying, but the babies are staying inside the mother, and the procedures to clean up the miscarriage, the procedures to remove those dead babies are considered abortions, and the doctors will not do them because their hospitals will not let them for fear of them being sued or prosecuted, and attorneys general in states like Texas are threatening to prosecute everyone involved, and I would like to know how that reality in other states would not be the reality here in South Dakota.
The speaker may answer that how they like.
well, as was mentioned, there is being a video that's being made to assure the medical profession that we can practice medicine without having abortion legal in our state. I don't know what's happening in these other states. I have read and heard about some of the instances, and most of those cases here in South Dakota, we would be supported. If there's no viable pregnancy, there's no reason that you cannot clean out the uterus. There is no reason that you can't do that. If it is deemed non-viable, that's just a normal surgical procedure. And I don't believe any hospital in South Dakota is ever going to say you can't do that.
All right, thank you. So another question, final question for our speaker.
Hi, my name is Demeter Watkins, and Madam Chair, I was curious, of course I'm a philosophy major, so I'm a big nerd about questions of autonomy. So my question really boils down to here, how are we respecting the women and other people who can give birth in this state by revoking or restricting their individual autonomy?
What do you mean by revoking their individual autonomy?
So I guess it just depends on your definition of autonomy. I'm mostly looking at it as we are agents of free will in society and in life, that in this world that we can tangibly see. We are able to make our own decisions. We are free actors. And by revoking that, in this case by revoking somebody's right to a medical procedure, whether it be abortion or any other medical procedure, how are we respecting them if we are telling them that we are going to do something to revoke one of these choices, one of these decisions, one of these actions that they can make as a free agent?
I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that there's a study that came out in 2004 where they spoke with women who had undergone abortions in the United States, and this revealed that 67%, you say, you're talking about women making decisions. Okay, 67% of the women who underwent abortions received no counseling prior to their abortion. 64% of the women responded that they felt pressured to have the abortion. 54% of the women were unsure about their abortion decision at the time. Only 4% claimed to feel more in control of their life after the abortion. Studies have also showed that abortion significantly increases the risk for depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation and behavior. Is this protecting our women? Women are coerced. One woman I know had a gun to her head by her husband, who said, "You will have the abortion." With this chemical abortion, I heard another testimony of a woman whose husband had been putting abortion pills in her beverage and not telling her. And when she figured it out, she went to the authorities, and when he tried to poison her again, he was caught, and he unfortunately only got an 18-month sentence.
All right, I think we're going to move on to the next speakers. The chair will thank you for an opening speaker. So at this point, we open it up to anyone, but the chair will only give the speakers 3 minutes just to kind of keep it going. And I would also like to introduce at this point a speech on the topic, what we call speech on the topic, which is, if you're not 100% sure what side you're on, maybe you can say, I'm going to do a speech on the topic. Or maybe if you just want to bring more information to the table, you can say that you're doing a speech on the topic. So the chair is now looking for a speech in the affirmative or a speech on the topic. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I don't know if this is a courtroom or not, but it doesn't seem like one. Okay. Hello. Of course, I asked the last question. My name again is Demeter, or Demi. I don't care how you refer to me, as long as it's that name. And of course, I'm going to speak on the affirmative. If you can't tell, I work for the petition to restore Roe v. Wade in South Dakota. I think this is an important issue, not only because it is a question of women's rights in this state and women's rights across the country, but it's also a question of what comes next. It's a question about our autonomy as individuals. Thank you. So seeing that the Supreme Court, of course, through their many opinions in the Dobbs case of 2022, specifically, Justice Thomas came out to speak specifically about other ways that the same ruling has been applied in the past, whether it be miscegenation or other access to reproductive products, such whether it be contraceptives like condoms or birth control, etc. So some of the other things that we could look at being taken away if we continue to allow the revocation of our autonomy is having people who are transgender having their health care taken away from them. Us as individuals having elective surgeries. Us as individuals having rights to have plastic surgery. Again, the wonderful, wonderful thing about the United States of America is that we have a lot of freedoms granted to us by our founding documents and our governing documents. They allow us to make these decisions for ourselves, not on the behest of somebody else. I know that our previous speaker brought up a piece of evidence that brought up where women were coerced. That's anecdotal evidence. She provided two instances of this, not among the many, many other reasons why women have abortions in this country. It is not just because people are getting coerced into having abortions. It's because they have a need. They have a reason. There are so many women. We have a source over there. At least 64,000 women have been forced to carry to term because of the abortion bans in their state because they were raped. That's 64,000 people. I know that South Dakota is not really a big state. We have less than 1 million people here. 64,000 people is a lot. I don't know why we feel like we need to tell people what they can and cannot do as individuals. Again, I'll be honest, I'm a transgender woman. This is scary not just because I identify as a woman, but because it also means that there are other rights and other medical things that are available to us as individuals that might be taken away. In the state of Missouri, just last year, they banned people under the age of 25 from making a decision of whether or not they can have access to hormone replacement therapy. We could face that here too. It's not just an issue of abortion, it's also an issue of many other medical procedures that we have the choice to make. Thank you.
The chair opens the audience up for questions for the speaker. Are there any questions for our speaker? Yes.
Hi, my name is Sonia, and I just have, Madam Speaker, have a question. And what I'm wondering is, how do you know it's anecdotal for her, since she was an abortion doctor for many years and she dealt with what was going on? So I don't know how you can say it's anecdotal since she lived it and she dealt with it, and then she came to the realization that this is a real unique human being and that every single one in here is valued, whether you're inside the womb in a different location or outside of the womb.
Yep, so the speaker may answer that.
I would love to answer that question. I think you just misunderstood what I was saying. I was saying in that instance, not her individual experience as a doctor. I didn't say that was anecdotal. I said the experiences of the women that she recounted. Whether or not these accounts were true or not, we don't know. We cannot say for sure. But those two instances of women being pressured into or being coerced into having an abortion, those are pieces of anecdotal evidence. It's just two amongst the hundreds of thousands of women who have had abortions. That's what's anecdotal. Two instances. That is by definition. I don't know why you're disagreeing with me, because that is by definition anecdotal evidence.
All right, so we're going to move on. We're going to move on to speeches in the negative or speeches on the topic. Yes.
Madam.
If you could come here.
I'm really...
Okay, well...
No, thanks, I don't want to. I think you'll be able to hear me. Can you hear me?
It's for the people.
It's for the people
Oh,
online.
the people online.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, if you can hold it, that'd be great. Okay, so I think with the question of abortion, we have to attach another question, which I rarely hear, which is, do I believe in life? Now, everyone here would probably say, of course I believe in life. But I think depending on where you are on the abortion issue, you have to be, if you're going to be really honest, it's a very difficult question to answer or to respond honestly to. And then there's two parts to that. One is, this is about another life, and everyone here in the room has been given a life. None of us are creators of life. We didn't make our own life. And so we have, as a human being, a very significant responsibility to life itself. And the other part is that if you ask someone who's had an abortion the question, was it the right thing to do? Invariably, the response I've received is no, it was not. It was wrong, wrong, wrong. And that word wrong continues to be repeated. So why intimate someone, why point someone in the direction of the wrong path, and also, to a life of remorse and regret, and also, if a person who's had an abortion, has gone through this, says it's wrong, perhaps that should enlighten us. And then, so in summary, the question of abortion is really the question of, it's a question about life itself, and who I'm going to be, or who one is going to be in this life that we have been given.
Thank you. So any questions for our speaker? Yes.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Campbell, and... Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. May I ask this question?
Yes.
Madam Chair. I was pregnant with twins, and I had to abort one in order to save the other. An abortion literally saved my son's life, and he is now 17 years old and healthy. So I appreciate your discussion about...
The speakers. Yep.
Oh, sorry, the speaker. I appreciate her mentioning life. I made the decision to give one of my beloved twins life, whereas I would have had to bury two babies. I think that I should be able, as a happily pregnant mother of two at home, who does in-home daycare, who goes to Catholic church every Sunday, to be able to make my own medical decisions to save the life of one of my twins.
If you could just form this into a question.
So the question is, should women be able to make their own decisions to save the life of one of their twins, or in cases of multiple pregnancies? Should they be able to make their own medical decisions to do that? Chair, Madam Chair. Thank you.
If we have to kind of stay to the speaker to answer the questions. Does the speaker wish to answer the question?
Believe in life, and it's a very hard question to ask. We don't ask it. I don't usually hear it in these kinds of debates because it's the truth. If you're seeking the truth, do I believe in life? And it's a very hard question to answer, and you've kind of answered it.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions for our speaker? Any final questions for our speaker? All right, so we'll move on then. We are now looking for a speech in the affirmative or a speech on the topic. Yes. Right here. She's right there.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Johnson, and I think one of the things that concerns me the most, I'm actually running for Congress against Dusty Johnson. One reason because Washington is messed up and nobody is getting anything done, but the other reason is this issue here. I have got 4 grown daughters of childbearing age, and I realize what Dr. Giebink said, that people shouldn't be confused about this. Well, people are confused about it. 33 years ago, I had an unviable pregnancy. I had to have a D&C. We are seeing in red states that are banning abortion that these women are having to go out of the state to get the care they need, and that really concerns me that my daughters don't have that same right of safety and medical care that I have. The other thing that happened to me is one of my daughters had a miscarriage a couple weeks weeks after Roe was passed, or overturned, I should say, and she went into the hospital to seek care, and they allowed her to go home without receiving care. During the middle of the night, 4 in the morning, my son-in-law found her collapsed on their bathroom floor, and she was so weak from blood loss, he had to call an ambulance to take her back to the hospital. So as a mother, I am very angry about that. And yes, it may be that they're just misinformed, but we're going to have that. We're going to have that misinformation. What we don't understand is that we have to respect each other's views of life. I think we all agree that living cells are embryos. They're all living cells. But what some religions believe, and I totally respect their belief, is that life begins at conception. It's a baby at conception. You know what? If you believe that, I totally am fine with that. That's your right to do that. Other people believe that, yes, they're living cells, but it's not a baby yet, and to have an abortion prevents a baby from forming. I've heard voters on both sides, and they're all very confident in their belief in that. So my issue is, I do not want to give a stranger or a politician or the government the right to make that decision for my daughters. To me, it's about who makes the decision. If we want to stop abortion, let's focus on making lives better for families. A lot of the same legislators that vote to ban abortion, they voted in legislature to not feed our hungry children over the summer. Okay? They're not providing child care. They're making lives harder for women. We have to make lives good for our families if we want them to be able to bring babies and children into the world, and we have to take care of the babies once they're here, not just when they're unborn. So with that, I totally respect your view of life beginning at conception, and I respect the people that feel that, you know, it doesn't begin till later. But to me, the issue is not whether it's right or wrong, it's who has the right to make that decision. And I am not giving government the power to make that decision for women.
Thank you. All right, we are now looking for questions for our speaker. Are there any questions for our speaker? We have a question. Yeah, we do give priority to those who haven't spoken yet, but we appreciate your question.
Madam Chairman, my name's Kay Miller, and I have a question for either the speaker or somebody in the room if she doesn't know the answer, but when did abortion become a political issue? It didn't used to be political until one of the parties brought it into politics in the southern states to try to swing an election. And so if somebody in the room could help.
It was when they were trying to get the Southern Democrats on the evangelical side, they wanted to bring them into their party. That was when they started making it more of a political option. So I think it should be a health care option. 71? Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other final questions for our speaker? Any final questions? Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, I see.
I'm trying to be. I'm not yet.
I just want to know.
Which means I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. So.
Where in this initiative does it say a woman has to have an abortion?
Right. She doesn't. It should be her choice. Yeah. And my concern too is for those who are talking about, you know, all these women regret it and stuff. I think a lot of times they regret it because they're getting judged so much by the people that don't understand their situation. So I just think let's have some compassion for these situations. Let's do what we can to make our families stronger so that the born children can have support. Now she wants.
All right, we're going to have to move to a speech in the negative, and then after. Oh, yep. Caroline is.
Caroline Woods here. Yes, I would love to speak next.
Okay. Just a reminder. After this speech, we're going to do 2 closing speeches, which are just about 2 minutes. So you know, someone could do speech, which is just kind of wrapping up thoughts. We're not going to have time for questions for those 2 closing speeches, but after this we'll move on to closing speeches. So, yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm Caroline Woods. I'm a South Dakota pro-life mom, And I wanted to just kind of recircle back to this abortion amendment. This abortion amendment has been framed by my opponents as just first trimester and second trimester, but we know it's actually the third trimester as well. As one of my colleagues and friends who spoke in the beginning had stated, if you look at your flyer, it clearly states in the third trimester, and I'm going to quote this for you, with the medical judgment of the woman's physician to preserve the life or health. Now, the health obviously includes psychological, emotional, and so much more, familial, and so on. But I wanted just to give you a little bit of my experience. I had a rare pregnancy this last year. I have a 1.5-year-old, but I had a pregnancy that was really tough. It's called hyperemesis gravidarum. It's very rare. You get very, very sick during pregnancy. So I had a really rough time. And on top of that, my father was dying. So as you can imagine, I had physical distress as well as emotional. Now, under this abortion amendment, if made law this November, I could have easily gone and gotten an abortion at 9 months, right before my son was due. That is a horrific reality. That's something that my opponents have been touting as a good thing, as women's health. That is nothing but. My son could have been very easily born, but under this abortion amendment, he could have been very easily aborted. Another friend of mine here in Rapid City, she had some issues with her hands. It was causing her distress physically and emotionally due to her pregnancy. She too could have gotten, for her hand, an abortion up to birth. And that's something that's really, really scary. I don't want that to become a reality here in South Dakota, and I'm sure a lot of you guys don't as well. Now, also, 78% of Americans do not even support abortion in the third trimester. I want to know why we are even proposing this in this amendment. It's sloppily written, and it allows abortion up to birth, which, again, most Americans and South Dakotans vehemently disagree with. So for something as radical as that, I'm here just to share this, how easily it can be for anyone here in South Dakota to just go and get an abortion. And not to mention, it's a 2 to 3 day process in the third trimester to get an abortion. And it's a high risk to the mother. They deal with a lot of distress, physically, emotionally, mentally, you name it. But it's a very high risk for them. So if we're really in favor, as my opponents continue to say they are, and supporting women's health, then I want to know why this is written as it is when this in fact endangers health. And just a last note, as one of my friends had said earlier, one of the speakers, someone had asked the question about, hey, like, what if there aren't enough, parents for all these children? Well, I just want to let you guys know how many mothers I have talked to. How many mothers here in South Dakota have kept their children after rape and incest, have kept their children after they decided not to get an abortion. Obviously, it's outlawed here, but they can easily go in a different state and have that. But they chose life, and they chose the best option for their child. Now, not every mother is going to keep their child. They will, give it to a beautiful, loving home, and it might not be the situation that they can keep it, but many times they do, and that's a wonderful thing. So I just wanted to give that over to you guys, and please consider that the third trimester is a devastating addition to this constitutional abortion amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the chair is now looking for questions for our speaker. Just a couple last questions for our speaker before we move on to closing speeches.
Yeah, my question to the speaker is, with only 2 abortion clinics in the country that actually serve late-term abortions, where are you getting your late-term abortions at? The wait time is much too long and travel much too tedious, I think, for most people in the wait list, even at those clinics. So explain to me just how easy that might be.
Yeah, I have no doubt that Planned Parenthood will stack up their clinics here in South Dakota if this abortion amendment is passed. And I have no doubt my opponents will be itching to get more abortion providers here. So I have no doubt that it won't be a long of a wait time.
All right, a last question for our speaker. Last question.
Hi. Okay, so I've obviously circulating the petition, but
my question is, if you, what? Oh, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so if what do I call her?
The speaker.
Okay, if the speaker, did the speaker try to have an abortion in the 3rd trimester? If not, how are you qualified to even, like, talk about that at all? Like, did you even try that?
Well, I think everyone here, unless you've had an abortion or not had an abortion, if you haven't, then you can't speak to that. So no, I have not had an abortion. Obviously, it's outlawed here in our state, thank God. And I have a happy child. But I do know many women, read their stories, talked to them. Yeah, it's a devastating thing. And I'll just note this. One of my childhood friends, it's kind of a second mom to me. She's in her 70s. She had multiple abortions. She has nightmares countlessly for the past, 40 years. She has psychological trauma. She's dealing with mental illness and so many issues from these abortions. So let me just say, I was like, you don't have to have had a 3rd trimester abortion to speak to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to our speaker. Yes. I'm gonna have to. Okay. Well, all right. As long as it's quick.
So I'm coming from the standpoint that there we go. Oh, I'm coming from the standpoint that I'm an obstetrician, gynecologist as well, and I have delivered several fetuses that have passed away in the 3rd trimester. They are difficult deliveries. They are more difficult deliveries than delivering a live fetus. So the fact that you're saying that you're going to terminate a child in the 2nd or 3rd trimester because it's healthier for the mom to deliver, that is totally false. It is not healthier. It is not easier to deliver a fetus that has passed away in the 2nd or 3rd trimester. It is a harder delivery, and it is harder on that mother. It is not healthier.
Thank you. If we have any other final comments, we can definitely make these after the debate. But we are going to move on to our closing speeches, which we are going to just do 2 minutes for the closing speeches, and we're not going to have, again, enough time to ask questions, but afterwards, I would like you to stay so that we can do a debrief, which is a very important part of our Braver Angels debate process. And so I'll get more into that once we get closer. But could we please have the first closing speech for the affirmative? Does anyone want to do a closing speech for the affirmative? All right. The speaker will get 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. Starting right now. CDC does some research, says that 93% of all abortions occur in the 1st trimester. 6% occur in the 2nd trimester, usually as a result of something went wrong, okay? And in the last trimester, it's less than 1%. And it's usually life of the mother or a serious health concern that comes up, and the doctor in consultation with his patient makes the decision, okay? So we're having a debate about that last trimester when it's only about less than 1%. And that just isn't what this is about. This is about taking away a right that women have had for over 50 years in this country. And it's saying to the rapists and the people that are involved in incest that that pregnancy has to be carried to term. And that just doesn't seem to gel when 76% of South Dakotans are saying no. They want options. Women need options. And that's what this amendment's all about. Now, I get frustrated, Madam Speaker, that none of the stuff about all these charges about how extreme Roe is, look at the comparison of the language I provided you tonight, please. And all these charges about parental notification, doctors being forced to perform, other things that are sitting there in on the brochures that you've got, take a look at those, because they didn't exist under Roe. None of that stuff existed under Roe, and their whole premise of the argument against this is that this goes beyond Roe. That's why you better be concerned about parental notification, doctors being forced to perform abortions, this safety and health regulations. It's terrible. I sat in Pierce, South Dakota in front of the State Affairs Committee, and someone on the committee, a representative from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, said, this is going to lead to backroom abortions if we pass this bill. Well, I'm sorry, what the hell did we have prior to Roe? It was backroom or back alley abortions, okay? You got to be concerned about women's health and safety. The way you do that is you get rid of this Arizona, South Dakota abortion ban and the rapist protection law that we're living under right now, and you pass this amendment.
Thank you. So, again, we won't have any time for questions, but you're absolutely free to ask these questions to the speakers after our debate ends. So we're going to do one final closing speech in the affirmative. Yes, thank you. Or negative, I'm sorry. That's on me, yes, negative. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, quick. A speech in the negative. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here on behalf of women's rights. I'm here on behalf of men's rights. I'm here on behalf of humanity's rights. And this is something that is not a part of the conversation today. I want to show you a picture of who I am here for. It's my daughter at 12 weeks. And I want her to be able to have the same rights that I have, just like this. I am a science teacher, and did you know that as soon as the egg is fertilized, it starts splitting and multiplying cells immediately. Before implantation, when it gets to the uterine lining, there's actually hundreds of cells. And if you look into it, the entire DNA is already written. If we found that on Mars, we'd say, life. There's life on Mars. But it's here in my uterus. And so now, this creature doesn't have the same rights that I do as an American citizen. And I just want to read this. This was this year, February 16, 2024. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos, okay, so this is before implantation, this is very early in the fertilization, should be considered children and that people can be held legally responsible for destroying them. The decision was issued in a pair of wrongful death cases brought by 3 couples who had frozen embryos destroyed in an accident at the fertility clinic. Judges ruled that under state law, it allows parents to sue over the death of a minor child, which, quote, applies to all unborn children regardless of their location. I'll yield my time.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so again, we are going to do a debrief, but first, I would like to thank you all for coming here and thank you for doing amazing speeches and asking great questions, and just thank you for all of this. I will now ask for permission to adjourn the debate, so if I have permission, please raise your hand. Thank you. Without any objection, the debate is adjourned. So you can begin calling me by name now, and you can address each other, and feel free to tell each other your bottled insults. So again, how this debrief works is very simple. You just tell us what you learned, what you enjoyed, and what can we improve here at Braver Angels. So just throw them out there. What did you learn? What did you enjoy? What can we improve? Yep.
Maybe having both speakers in person or both speakers online, because it seems a little wonky.
Yep, I see.
Yeah.
All right, so anything else? What did you learn? What did you enjoy?
Hi, my name is Pam. What I learned is that My husband, who's a mathematician, often says that statistics can be used for any argument you want, and that's what I've learned tonight, is that I've heard an awful lot of statistics that are totally contrary to one another, so I need to do some research.
All right. Anyone else? What did you learn? What did you enjoy? Yes.
I learned that if I want to speak, I better sign up ahead of time.
What did you learn? What did you enjoy?
Hi, my name is Jan, and I don't think we're going to change each other's minds.
And you don't necessarily have to. We're just here to express each other's, our opinions. And so it's still good to learn from the other perspective, and whether that makes you change your mind or whether that makes your own opinion stronger, it's good either way. So thank you. What did you learn? What did you enjoy? Or what can we improve?
What I learned is, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't respect human life from conception. And it's a sad state of affairs. And to be disrespectful to Dr. Patty, who has wonderful experience about the truth of abortion.
All right. What did you learn? What did you enjoy? Yes.
I learned that abortion is probably the rapist's best friend. Otherwise, we would have never known about all of those rapes. And do we want to continue the rapes being covered up, or do we want to expose the truth and not punish the child, but punish the rapist?
Yes. All right. What did you learn? What did you enjoy? What can we improve? Yes. I'll get to you next.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many species are out there that kill their offspring?
All right. Anything else? What did you learn? What did you enjoy?
I learned that there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time picking very words that trigger emotions. This is, in my opinion, if you hate me, fine, I don't care. That decision, being abortion, is between the woman, her spouse, if there is one involved, and her doctor. And we need to keep our damn noses out of it.
All right, so I think that about wraps it up. There's some stuff over here that you're feel free to check, and if there's any other comments you want to make, you can just come over to me and say them. Thank you.